The afternoon sun, a rich, buttery yellow, pierced the dense canopy of the ancient oak, streaking the rough-hewn planks of Lily's sanctuary. Inside, the luminescence softened, casting dancing patterns across the faded cushions and the open pages of her sketchbook. This was her private domain, a refuge from the world, perched high above the wild garden like a watchful sentinel. With her charcoal pencil, she outlined the delicate curve of a fern leaf, the faint scratch in a soothing rhythm against the distant hum of the world beyond her arboreal retreat. A half-eaten apple rested beside her, its sweetness a lingering ghost on her tongue. Here, enfolded by the whispering leaves, Lily found an unburdened lightness, a sensation rarely felt elsewhere. The earthy fragrance of damp soil and sun-warmed timber filled her lungs, grounding her while simultaneously liberating her thoughts to soar. The treehouse wasn't a grand affair, unlike the elaborate playhouses some children boasted. It was a humble, sturdy structure, built years ago by her grandfather, its planks now weathered to a silvery patina. Yet, within its simple confines, it was an entire cosmos. Scarves of myriad colors draped over the windows, diffusing the light into a vibrant kaleidoscope. A small, battered rug, a relic from her grandmother's attic, covered the floor, its intricate motifs almost entirely erased by time. Piles of books, their spines cracked and pages softened by countless readings, occupied a corner, a testament to hours lost in other realms. Her art supplies, pencils, pastels, a nascent watercolor set, were neatly arranged in an old wicker basket. Every object whispered a story, a memory, a cherished moment. Lily turned a page in her sketchbook, revealing a detailed rendering of a robin in mid-flight, its wings spread wide against a backdrop of soft washes. She recalled the meticulous effort to capture that fleeting instance, the patience demanded to observe, to truly perceive. This was the essence of what her treehouse offered, the expanse and tranquility to genuinely see, to deeply feel. It was a place where imagination flourished untamed, where the strictures of the outside world simply didn't apply. Here she could embody anyone, achieve anything. She could be an intrepid cartographer charting uncharted territories, a sagacious sorceress concocting potent elixirs, or simply just Lily. A soft breeze stirred the leaves outside, and a single, verdant leaf detached, spiraling gracefully past her window. Lily watched its descent, a faint smile playing on her lips. No one else knew of this haven. Not her parents, too engrossed in their bustling lives to notice the faint, almost invisible rope ladder tucked behind the dense ivy. Not her classmates, who would likely find it too quiet, too mundane. This was her secret, her most treasured possession, a sanctuary constructed not merely of wood and nails, but of solitude and dreams. She remembered the day she'd discovered the treehouse, years ago. A summer afternoon, bored and restless, she'd been exploring the overgrown fringes of their yard when she'd stumbled upon the almost concealed ladder. Ascending it had felt like an act of profound courage, a step into the unknown. The moment she'd pushed open the trapdoor and beheld the dusty interior, bathed in that same golden glow she'd instinctively known. This was hers. It was a profound sense of belonging, a feeling she often struggled to locate elsewhere. Sometimes, when the burden of schoolwork or the subtle sting of overlooked conversations at the lunch table grew too heavy, she would retreat here. The climb up the rope ladder served as a symbolic shedding of those anxieties. With each rung, the worries receded, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the gentle sway of the branches. Up here, the world seemed to shrink, its tribulations less formidable. She could truly breathe. She could simply exist. A flicker of unease, a tiny shadow at the periphery of her peace, stirred within her. Lately, the murmurs at school had intensified, growing more insistent. Gossip, a swirling current of unkind words, seemed to permeate the air, threatening to seep into every quiet nook. She'd attempted to disregard it, to burrow deeper into her books and sketches, but even here, in her safe haven, the memory pricked at her. It was a strange, unsettling sensation, understanding that something so intangible could feel so menacing. She picked up her well-worn copy of, quote, The Secret Garden, tracing the embossed letters on its cover. The narrative resonated deeply with her. A hidden world. A place of healing and growth. That was precisely what her treehouse represented. It was a tangible manifestation of her inner landscape, a place where she could process her thoughts, confront her fears, and cultivate her gentle spirit. The notion of anyone else, especially the source of that unkind gossip, discovering it, felt like a deep violation. It was a thought she swiftly banished, unwilling to tarnish the purity of her sanctuary with such an unwelcome intrusion. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in a breathtaking tableau of orange and purple. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint, earthy aroma of evening. Lily carefully closed her sketchbook, tucking it beneath a cushion, a final sweep of her gaze across her beloved space, a silent vow to protect it, to safeguard its secret. As she descended the ladder, the world below seemed to rush back in, louder, more demanding. But she carried with her the quiet strength of her secret place, a calm certainty that, no matter what, she possessed a haven, a realm where kindness and imagination would forever reign. The late afternoon sun, a benevolent golden eye, warmed Lily's face as she swung higher and higher, her laughter a light, airy sound carried by the breeze. The wooden swing set, scarred with years of joyful abuse, creaked a familiar rhythm that was as comforting as a lullaby. Below her, the wood chips, a soft, fragrant carpet, blurred with each upward swoop. This playground, nestled at the edge of the sprawling town park, was her kingdom after school, a place where gravity seemed to briefly forget its rules and imagination soared as freely as the kites she sometimes watched from afar. She hummed a tuneless melody, her mind already drifting to the new adventure she'd planned for her sketchbook later. A brave knight, perhaps, defending a castle built of clouds. The world felt perfectly balanced, a gentle hum of contentment vibrating through her. Then, a sudden, jarring burst of sound pierced her peaceful bubble. And it's totally hidden, Brenda. No one even knows about it. Lily's feet, which had been pushing against the air with rhythmic grace, faltered. She slowed her swing, her brow furrowing slightly. The voices, shrill and insistent, belonged to a knot of girls gathered near the monkey bars, a place Lily usually avoided. Brenda, with her perpetually teased hair and a tendency to command attention like a tiny, self-appointed general, was at the center. "Are you sure?" Brenda's voice, amplified by her usual volume, carried clearly. "Because I heard there was a really secret fort, like super secret, and only the cool kids are invited." Lily's heart gave a curious little lurch. A secret fort? Her mind immediately pictured the sturdy, camouflaged haven she and her grandfather had painstakingly built in the ancient oak tree behind her house. It was her sanctuary, a place where stories came alive and worries evaporated. No one knew about it, not really. It was her secret. She pretended to watch a squirrel scamper up a tree, but her ears were straining, every nerve ending alert. The gentle sway of her swing had stopped entirely. "Yeah, but my cousin said it had a rope ladder." Another voice piped up, eager to contribute to the unfolding drama. "And a secret password," Brenda scoffed, a theatrical sound that bounced off the metal bars. "A rope ladder? Please. My informant, who is very reliable by the way, said it's got a trapdoor. And a secret code to get in. Something about a whispering willow and a giggling gnome." She paused, letting the dramatic pause hang in the air before adding, with a conspiratorial whisper that was anything but quiet, "And it's for a secret club. The Midnight Explorers." Quote. Lily's stomach did a slow, sickening flip-flop. Midnight Explorers? Whispering willow? Giggling gnome? The blood drained from her face, leaving a cold, hollow sensation. Those were the exact phrases her grandfather had used when they'd created the fort's secret lore, silly little passwords and names to make it feel more magical. He'd even painted a tiny, smiling gnome on one of the fort's wooden panels, nestled near a drawing of a weeping willow tree. Her fort. Her private, precious treehouse. How could they know? Who could have told them? A prickle of fear, cold and sharp, traced its way up her spine. Brenda's voice, usually a mere annoyance, now felt like a predatory growl. "And," Brenda continued, her voice rising to a triumphant crescendo, "I heard they're going to find it this weekend, and whoever finds it first gets to be the leader of the Midnight Explorers." A sudden, fierce protectiveness surged through Lily, eclipsing the initial fear. Her safe space, her quiet haven, was being talked about, dissected, and claimed. The thought of Brenda and her boisterous crew storming her private world, trampling over the magic and the careful quiet she had cultivated there, made her jaw clench. The golden afternoon light suddenly seemed less benevolent, more like a harsh spotlight illuminating a burgeoning threat. She swung her feet off the swing, landing softly on the wood chips, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The whispers on the playground had turned from mere gossip into a looming danger, a shadow creeping towards her most cherished secret. The late afternoon sun, usually a comforting golden wash, felt thin and distant through the classroom window. Lily, lost in the intricate details of a drawn fern frond, barely registered the dismissal bell's shrill demand. Her pencil danced across the page, each curve and spike bringing the imaginary forest floor to life. It wasn't until a shadow fell across her sketchbook that she looked up, her quiet concentration broken. Sam stood there, not with his usual playful grin, but with a furrowed brow and a tightness around his mouth that made her own stomach clench. He shuffled his feet, his gaze darting to Mrs. Gable's empty desk and then back to Lily, as if ensuring their privacy. "Lily," he began, his voice a low rumble, uncharacteristically serious. "Can we talk? Outside?" A prickle of unease traced its way down Lily's spine. She nodded slowly, carefully closing her sketchbook and sliding it into her worn backpack. The vibrant greens and browns of her drawing seemed to fade under the weight of Sam's unspoken worry. As they walked down the echoing hallway, the last stragglers rushing past them, Sam kept a strained silence. His hands were stuffed deep into his pockets, his shoulders hunched. Once they were outside, the cool autumn air doing little to dispel the tension, Sam steered her towards the ancient oak by the school fence, a spot usually reserved for whispered secrets and shared jokes. Today, however, the air felt heavy. He stopped abruptly, turning to face her, his eyes, usually so bright with mischief, clouded with concern. "It's Brenda," he stated, the name hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Lily blinked, waiting. Brenda was loud, often bossy, but usually harmless in her boisterousness. Sam took a deep breath, running a hand through his slightly unruly hair. She's saying things, Lily. About you. About the treehouse." Lily's heart gave a sudden, painful lurch. The treehouse, her sanctuary, her secret, the place where her drawings truly came to life, where her quiet imagination soared. "What kinds of things?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, a strange hollow ache beginning in her chest. "She's telling everyone she's calling you a hoarder up there, and that the treehouse is a messy, dangerous trap, and that you're keeping secrets, dark ones." Sam's words tumbled out, laced with a mixture of disbelief and genuine anger. "She even said you were creeping around the woods at night, doing weird stuff." The words struck Lily like small, sharp stones. Hoarder? Dangerous? Dark secrets. The vibrant, sun-dappled haven of her treehouse, filled with her drawings, her books, her collected treasures of nature. A smooth river stone, a perfectly preserved bird's feather, suddenly felt twisted and ugly under the harsh light of Brenda's accusations. Her private world, a space of quiet joy and discovery, was being ripped apart, distorted by careless, cruel words. A flush of heat rose to Lily's cheeks, a blend of embarrassment and a profound sense of violation. Why would Brenda say such things? She barely spoke to Brenda, never sought her attention, never crossed her path in any meaningful way. The idea of her cherished space being described as a, quote, dangerous trap, made her stomach churn. It was a place of comfort, a place she felt truly free. "But why?" Lily managed, her voice thick with confusion and hurt. The beauty of her secret spot, The quiet joy of her solitary hours seemed to wither under the scrutiny of Brenda's invented tales. Sam shook his head, his expression grim. "I heard her talking to a few of the girls by the swings. She was trying to get them to believe you were doing something wrong up there. She even hinted that she was going to tell her dad, and he'd make sure the treehouse was taken down because it's unsafe. She said it was for everyone's good." The mention of her treehouse being taken down sent a jolt of icy fear through Lily. Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just gossip. This was a direct threat to her most precious sanctuary. The treehouse wasn't just wood and nails. It was an extension of herself, a testament to her creativity and her need for a quiet corner in a loud world. To have it threatened, and by such outlandish lies, felt like a physical blow. The imagined safety of her elevated hideaway seemed to crumble around her, replaced by the chilling vulnerability of truth twisted into fiction. The vibrant colors of her inner world seemed to dim, overshadowed by the ugly cloud of Brenda's fabrications. The ladder to the Whispering Woods treehouse remained untouched, its rungs slick with morning dew. Lily stood at the edge of the clearing, her worn sneakers rooted to the damp earth. The familiar scent of pine and rich soil, usually a comforting balm, now felt laced with an invisible sting. Her gaze drifted upwards, past the gnarled branches of the ancient oak, to the sturdy wooden structure nestled within its embrace. The little window, usually a welcoming eye, seemed to stare back with a vacant, accusing look. It wasn't a place of refuge anymore, not with Brenda's words echoing in every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call. The thought of climbing up, of pushing open the creaky door and settling onto the sun-warmed floorboards, brought a fresh wave of nausea. She imagined Brenda's snickers, the knowing glances, the hushed whispers that would undoubtedly follow her there, even if no one else was physically present. The treehouse, her sanctuary, felt tainted, not by anything real, but by the insidious tendrils of a fabricated tale. A deep sigh escaped her, a sound heavy with resignation. Turning away from the inviting shade, she trudged back towards her house, the weight of unspoken accusations pressing down on her shoulders. Later, from the sanctuary of her bedroom window, Lily watched her treehouse. The afternoon sun dappled through the leaves, painting shifting patterns across its weathered walls. It looked so peaceful, so untouched by the ugliness that now clung to her. A pang, sharp and unwelcome, twisted in her gut. She remembered the endless hours spent sketching within its walls, the whispered secrets shared with imaginary friends, the quiet contentment of being utterly, completely herself. Now, that innocent joy felt stolen, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. The urge to reclaim it was strong, a defiant flicker against the encroaching gloom, but the fear of confronting the whispers was stronger. The school hallways buzzed with an unusual ferocity. Lily tried to shrink into her locker, becoming one with the chipped paint and scrawled graffiti. But even there, Brenda's voice, loud and insistent, cut through the general din. "And then," she was saying to a huddle of wide-eyed classmates near the water fountain, her voice dropping conspiratorially, "she tried to pretend she didn't even know what I was talking about. Can you believe it?" A ripple of laughter followed, sharp and dismissive. Lily felt her cheeks flush. It wasn't just a few kids anymore. Brenda had truly amplified her story, adding layers of dramatic embellishment, painting Lily as something she wasn't. During lunch, Brenda held court at a central table, gesturing wildly with a half-eaten sandwich. "She thought she was so clever," Brenda announced, loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. "Like we wouldn't figure it out. But you can't keep secrets from everyone, right?" More giggles, more pointed stares. Lily picked at her lukewarm pasta, the taste like ash in her mouth. She saw Sarah, a usually friendly girl from her art class, avert her eyes when Lily's gaze met hers. Even the teachers seemed to eye her differently, their smiles a little less warm, their questions a little more guarded. The isolation was a tangible thing, a thick, suffocating blanket that Brenda had expertly woven around her. The once vibrant world of childhood, filled with endless possibilities and secret adventures, had shrunk to the confines of her own anxious mind. Every glance felt like scrutiny, every hushed conversation a dissection of her character. The treehouse, once a symbol of freedom, now stood as a silent monument to her withdrawal, a constant reminder of what she had lost. The joy of creating, of imagining, had been eclipsed by the relentless shadow of Brenda's invention. Lily knew she couldn't hide forever, but the thought of facing the relentless tide of gossip felt like trying to swim against a hurricane. She just wanted the quiet to return, the kind of quiet that allowed her to hear her own thoughts, not the distorted echoes of someone else's invention. The late afternoon sun, usually a comforting blanket of gold, felt suddenly harsh, glinting off the mischievous leaves of the old oak tree. Lily, her sketchbook clutched tight to her chest, had been on her way to the Whispering Creek, seeking the quiet solace that usually soothed the jitters Brenda's recent antics had stirred. But a sharp burst of laughter, too loud and too close, snagged her attention. She froze, her heart thrumming a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Peeking from behind the dense thicket of elderberry bushes, Lily saw them. Brenda, a whirlwind of bright pink and defiant pigtails, was attempting to hoist herself onto the lowest branch of her oak tree. Her two constant companions, Tiffany and Sarah, giggled encouragement, their faces upturned, eyes wide with a mix of awe and nervous excitement. The sight was a jolt, a cold shock. This wasn't just a casual wander into the woods. This was an invasion. "Higher, Brenda! Higher!" Tiffany shrieked, clapping her hands. Brenda grunted, her sneakers scraping against the rough bark. "It's harder than it looks, but once I'm up there, we can totally build something amazing." She finally managed to scramble onto the branch, settling precariously. "This is going to be our new hangout spot. Way better than those boring swings at the park." Quote. A wave of icy dread washed over Lily. Her treehouse, her secret sanctuary, nestled high above them, hidden by the thick canopy. They couldn't know, could they? She held her breath, willing herself to become invisible. "Remember what you said about Lily and her old drawings?" Sarah chimed in, a smirk playing on her lips. "How she just sits around all day making up silly stories." Brenda scoffed, adjusting her grip on the branch. "Oh, yeah. She probably thinks this whole forest belongs to her. She's always acting so superior, like she's too good for everyone. Probably just hiding because she doesn't have anything interesting to do." Brenda's voice carried, laced with a familiar mix of insecurity and bravado. "Honestly, who spends all their time talking to trees? It's just weird. And those stories she tells? Total made-up nonsense." The words struck Lily like small, sharp stones. Weird. Made-up nonsense. Hiding? The familiar sting of tears pricked at her eyes, but this time, something else simmered beneath the surface. A hot, unfamiliar anger. All this time she had avoided Brenda, retreating further into her own quiet world, hoping the gossip would simply fizzle out. But it hadn't. It had followed her, creeping into her most cherished space, threatening to poison the very air she breathed. She watched as Brenda, emboldened by her companion's attention, began to swing her legs, almost as if she owned the branch. "We'll put up a sign," Brenda declared, puffing out her chest. "Brenda's awesome treehouse. It'll be the best." Lily's fingers tightened around her sketchbook, crumpling the edges slightly. The gentle, understanding silence of the woods felt shattered by their boisterous laughter and hurtful words. Her initial instinct was to shrink back, to find another path, to simply disappear. But the image of Brenda's triumphant grin, the casual dismissal of Lily's quiet joy, ignited a spark. This wasn't just about mean words anymore. This was about her space, her sanctuary, the place where her imagination truly bloomed. Hiding hadn't worked. Retreating had only made her feel smaller, while Brenda grew louder. A quiet storm brewed within Lily. She couldn't let them claim her tree, not without a fight, not after everything. With a newfound resolve, a steadying breath, Lily pushed through the elderberry bushes. The rustling leaves announced her presence like a trumpet call. Brenda, Tiffany, and Sarah froze, their laughter dying in their throats. Their heads snapped towards the sound, their eyes widening as they spotted Lily standing there, her usually shy gaze now direct and unwavering. The silence that fell was thick, heavy with unspoken tension. Lily felt a tremor of fear, but it was quickly overshadowed by a surge of courage. She straightened her shoulders, her chin lifting. She wouldn't hide anymore. She wouldn't let them take her tree. She took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth and distant pine needles filling her lungs, and walked towards them. The low-slung afternoon sun, already kissing the horizon, stretched long, distorted shadows across the backyard. Perched on the oak's highest branch, Lily felt a familiar tranquility envelop her. The gentle rhythm of the swaying wood was a balm, the rustle of leaves, a hushed confession. Her sketchbook lay open, a fantastical beast with iridescent scales slowly emerging from the tip of her pencil. This elevated perch was her sanctuary, a place where the world's din faded to a distant murmur. Suddenly, a piercing shriek shattered the peaceful tableau. "Lily pad! What do you think you're doing in my fort?" Lily flinched, her pencil skittering across the paper. Below, Brenda stood at the oak's base, hands planted on her hips, her face a mask of outrage. Her usual retinue, Chloe and Sarah, hovered a few paces behind, radiating vague discomfort. The serenity Lily had embraced moments before evaporated, replaced by a familiar knot tightening in her stomach. Confrontation was her least favored weather, and Brenda was a storm system that rarely blew over quietly. It's not a fort, Brenda," Lily stammered, her voice a mere whisper against the rising gale of Brenda's temper. "And it's not yours," Brenda scoffed, a loud theatrical sound that reverberated in the suddenly charged air. "Oh, really? Last I checked, a big wooden box in a tree is a fort, and I saw it first. Finders keepers, loser weepers." She punctuated her declaration with a foot stomp, sending up a puff of dust. Her eyes, usually flitting with nervous energy, now pinned Lily with an uncharacteristic fixity. Lily drew a deep breath, the mingled sense of damp earth and oak leaves filling her lungs. This was it. This was the moment for courage, not just for herself, but for the quiet, magical space her dad had helped her create. Slowly, deliberately, she began her descent. Each rung of the rope ladder felt solid beneath her bare feet, a small anchor in the swirling chaos Brenda was brewing. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat, yet a new resolve stiffened her spine. When her feet finally met the ground, she stood taller than she felt, meeting Brenda's gaze directly. "It's a treehouse, Brenda," Lily said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the persistent tremor in her hands. "And it's mine. My dad and I built it last summer. We designed it together. It's for reading and drawing, and sometimes just for thinking." She gestured vaguely towards the sturdy platform, the small window box bursting with marigolds, the colorful wind chimes her dad had helped hang. Every nail, every plank, held a cherished memory. Brenda's eyes narrowed, her lower lip jutting out in a defiant pout. "Built it? Don't be ridiculous, Lily Pad. Your dad barely knows how to hammer a nail straight. Everyone knows that. You probably just snuck in and took over." She glanced back at Chloe and Sarah, seeking affirmation, a performative sigh escaping her lips. "She's always making things up to sound important, isn't she?" Chloe shuffled her feet, avoiding eye contact. Sarah, typically quick to echo Brenda, remained silent, picking idly at a loose thread on her shorts. Their hesitation, subtle as it was, ignited a flicker of unexpected bravery in Lily. "It's true," Lily insisted, her voice gaining unexpected power. "He taught me how to use a saw, and we painted the inside blue, like the sky." She pointed to a faint smear of paint on the lowest support beam, a silent testament to their shared project. "It's my quiet place." Brenda threw her hands up in theatrical exasperation. "A quiet place? In my fort? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Forts are for adventures and secret club meetings, not for thinking." She swiveled back to her companions, her voice escalating. "Tell her, Chloe. Tell her she can't just claim something she didn't even build." Chloe mumbled something inaudible, her gaze fixed firmly on the ground. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, her eyes flitting between Lily and Brenda. The unified front Brenda usually commanded was fraying at the edges. Lily watched, a strange blend of trepidation and relief washing over her. Brenda's usual potency stemmed from her ability to sway others, but today, that power seemed to be waning. The setting sun cast long shadows, painting the scene in hues of orange and purple. a dramatic backdrop to Lily's quiet defiance. She had spoken her truth, and for the first time it felt like it might actually be heard. The late afternoon sun cast long, distorted shadows across the schoolyard as Brenda, hands on her hips, addressed the small cluster of kids. Her voice, usually just loud, now had an extra edge of theatrical certainty. "And I saw it with my own eyes!" Her dad, creeping around late at night, pulling out old boards from the abandoned lot. Definitely for some secret club Lily's not telling us about. A few kids exchanged uneasy glances, their eyes flicking towards Lily, who stood a little apart, her face flushed, clutching a worn sketchbook to her chest. Lily's heart pounded against her ribs. She wanted to explain, to shout that her dad was just an amazing carpenter, building her a treehouse, but the words felt stuck, a dry lump in her throat. Brenda's accusations, laced with half-truths and wild imaginings, were twisting everything. The treehouse, her beautiful private sanctuary, was being poisoned by gossip. Suddenly, a calm voice cut through Brenda's dramatic monologue. "That's not true, Brenda." All eyes turned to Sam. He had stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Lily, not aggressively, but with a quiet resolve that made Brenda falter. "Lily wouldn't do anything like that," he continued, his gaze steady on Brenda. "She's always the first one to help. Remember when Mrs. Gable's cat got stuck in the oak tree? Lily was the one who climbed up and coaxed it down." A ripple of recognition passed through the small group. Liam, usually Brenda's most loyal follower, nodded slowly. "Yeah, she did. I forgot about that." Sam pressed on, his voice gaining a gentle warmth. "And remember when Timmy scraped his knee really bad during recess? Everyone else was just staring. But Lily ran to get the first aid kit and stayed with him until the teacher came." He turned to face the other kids, his expression open and earnest. "Lily's not about secret clubs. She's about being kind." The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. The seeds of doubt Brenda had so carefully planted began to wither under the sunlight of truth. Maya, who had been listening intently, piped up. "My mom said she saw Lily's dad working on something in their backyard. She said it looked like a fort, a really cool one." Another girl, Chloe, chimed in. "Yeah, my brother saw him too. He said it was going to be the best treehouse ever." Her eyes widened with sudden understanding. "Is that what you were drawing, Lily?" "The treehouse." Lily, still a little shaky, managed a small nod, her gaze lifting from the ground. A tiny spark of relief flickered within her. Brenda's face, which had been so animated just moments before, now drained of color. Her shoulders sagged slightly. The confident smirk that usually played on her lips had vanished, replaced by a tight, uncomfortable line. Her audience, her power base, was crumbling. The kids who had been nodding along with her outlandish tales were now looking at her with a mixture of confusion and mild disapproval. Liam had even moved a step closer to Maya and Chloe, physically distancing himself from Brenda's shrinking circle. The silence that followed Sam's quiet defense felt immense, filled with the weight of unspoken apologies and reconsidered judgments. Brenda fidgeted, her gaze darting from one face to another, finding no support, only averted eyes or expressions of mild disappointment. The imaginary secret club, her grand scoop, had dissolved into thin air, leaving only the mundane reality of a father building a treehouse for his daughter. Without another word, her usual bluster completely deflated, Brenda turned on her heel. Her exit wasn't dramatic or defiant. It was a hasty retreat, her pace quickening as she walked away from the group, leaving the lingering scent of embarrassment in her wake. The kids watched her go, then slowly, one by one, turned back to Lily, their expressions softened, curiosity replacing suspicion. Lily finally managed a small, genuine smile, clutching her sketchbook a little less tightly. The weight in her chest had lifted, replaced by a warm, bubbling sensation. Kindness, it seemed, really did win the day. A soft breeze rustled through the leaves of the old oak, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and distant honeysuckle. Lily sat on the newly installed window seat in her treehouse, a profound sense of lightness settling over her shoulders. The recent confrontation, while nerve-wracking, had left her with an unexpected clarity. Kindness wasn't a weakness, but a quiet, formidable strength. The whispers and snickers that had once felt like a tightening band around her chest now seemed distant, like the faint hum of bees in a far-off meadow. She had chosen a different path, one paved with open hearts rather than closed doors. Her gaze drifted around the familiar, comforting space. The woven rugs she'd painstakingly crafted from old fabrics, the mismatched cushions, the shelves overflowing with worn books and half-finished sketches. It was all here, a sanctuary built not just for herself, but now, she realized, for anyone who sought solace. The idea, born in a quiet moment of reflection, began to blossom. This wouldn't be a place for secrets or hushed rumors. It would be a haven for shared stories, for quiet contemplation, for the simple joy of being. She retrieved a smooth, flat piece of pine wood from her art supplies. Dipping a fine brush into a pot of crimson paint, she began to carefully letter the words that had been forming in her mind. All are welcome here. Quote. As she worked, a small, inquisitive squirrel with a remarkably bushy tail hopped onto the windowsill, twitching its nose. It chittered softly, watching her with bright, beady eyes. Lily smiled, offering it a small piece of dried apple from her pocket. The squirrel cautiously accepted, burying it beneath a loose floorboard with astonishing speed before returning to its perch, a silent, furry companion. Finishing the sign, Lily secured it just above the entrance, its friendly message, a beacon against the dappled sunlight. Word, as it always did in their small town, traveled, not through pointed fingers or snide remarks, but through a different kind of current, a quiet curiosity, a subtle shift in the playground atmosphere. The first to visit was Leo, a boy from her class known for his perpetually rumpled shirts and an uncanny ability to fix anything mechanical. He arrived with a broken toy robot, a shy smile, and a hopeful glance at the all-are-welcome sign. Lily invited him in, offering him a corner of her workbench and some spare tools. They spent the afternoon in companionable silence, the rhythmic click of tiny gears the only sound. Soon after, Maria, who usually kept to herself, carrying a sketchpad filled with intricate floral designs, hesitantly climbed the ladder. She merely sat on one of the cushions, quietly observing Lily's own charcoal drawings before pulling out her own pad. No words were exchanged, yet a profound understanding bloomed between them, a shared appreciation for the silent language of art. The treehouse slowly transformed from Lily's private refuge into a gentle community hub. The visits were never boisterous. There was no boisterous laughter or competitive games. Instead, children came seeking quiet company, a place to read without interruption, to share a drawing, or simply to exist in peaceful coexistence. Sarah, who loved to weave friendship bracelets, brought her colorful threads and found a comfortable spot by the window. Tom, usually restless, would sit absorbed in one of Lily's many books about distant lands, his brow furrowed in concentration. Lily watched them, a warmth spreading through her chest. The air in the treehouse, once thick with the ghosts of past anxieties, now hummed with a different energy, a quiet hum of shared purpose, of gentle companionship. The fear of confrontation had faded, replaced by the quiet triumph of connection. She had opened her space, and in doing so, had opened her heart, finding that true strength lay not in avoiding the storm, but in building a shelter where everyone could weather it together. The old oak, with its sturdy branches, seemed to sigh contentedly, its leaves whispering approval of the haven it now hosted. The late afternoon sun cast long, dancing shadows through the leaves as Brenda approached the old oak. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a drum solo of apprehension. She clutched the strap of her worn backpack, her knuckles white. Below the sprawling branches, the treehouse sat nestled, a beacon of whispered secrets and quiet dreams. It looked smaller from down here, yet somehow more imposing. She could hear the faint rustle of pages, a soft, almost imperceptible hum that suggested Lily was inside. Taking a deep breath, Brenda swallowed the lump in her throat. This was harder than she'd imagined. "Lily?" she called, her voice cracking slightly. It felt tiny and uncertain in the vastness of the yard. A moment of silence stretched, broken only by the chirping of crickets. Then, a small, curious face peered over the edge of the trapdoor opening. Lily's eyes, usually wide with imagination, were narrowed slightly, tinged with a hint of wariness. She held a sketchbook in one hand, a pencil tucked behind her ear. "Brenda?" Lily's voice was soft, a stark contrast to Brenda's usual boisterous tone. There was no accusation, just surprise. "Can I come up?" Brenda asked, gesturing vaguely at the rope ladder that swayed gently in the breeze. Her stomach did a flip-flop. She half expected Lily to say no, to remind her of all the careless words, the twisted stories that had spiraled from Brenda's own restless lips. Lily hesitated for a beat, her gaze sweeping over Brenda's nervous posture. Then, a faint smile touched her lips. "Of course," she said, her voice regaining its usual warmth. "Careful on the last rung, it's a bit wobbly." Relief washed over Brenda, so potent it almost made her knees buckle. She scrambled up the ladder, her movements clumsy, her backpack bumping against the rough wood. When she finally pulled herself through the opening, she found herself in a cozy space, bathed in the warm, golden light filtering through the leafy canopy. Drawings covered the walls. Fantastical creatures, intricate landscapes, and portraits of flowers Brenda couldn't name. The air smelled faintly of cedar and pencil shavings. Lily sat cross-legged on a plush cushion, her sketchbook open on her lap. She gestured to an empty cushion opposite her. "Have a seat," she offered, her tone genuinely welcoming. Brenda sat, trying to appear nonchalant, but her fingers still fidgeted with the strap of her bag. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with unspoken words. Brenda cleared her throat. "Look, Lily," she began, her voice barely a whisper. I'm really sorry." Lily looked up, her quiet gaze steady and unwavering. She didn't interrupt, just waited. "About everything," Brenda continued, her cheeks flushing. "The things I said, the stories I made up. About you and the treehouse. I know it was mean. And unfair. And just wrong." She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. I felt left out, I guess. And I wanted people to pay attention to me. It was stupid. And I hurt you, didn't I?" Lily's expression softened. She closed her sketchbook, resting it gently beside her. "Yes," she admitted softly. "It did hurt. A lot." She paused, then added, "But I understand why you might have felt that way." Her understanding wasn't condoning, but it was a bridge, not a wall. Brenda looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw no anger, only a quiet empathy. "You do?" Lily nodded. "Sometimes, when you feel like no one sees you, you just want to make a big noise. I get it." A wave of profound relief and gratitude washed over Brenda. Lily's kindness was a balm to her agitated spirit. You're really something, Lily," Brenda murmured, a genuine smile finally breaking through her nervous facade. "Thank you. For not yelling at me." "What good would that do?" Lily shrugged, a small, gentle gesture. "It doesn't fix anything." She picked up a new, blank sketchbook and a handful of colored pencils from a small wooden box beside her. "Want to draw?" Brenda's eyes lit up. Drawing was something she loved, but rarely got to do with anyone else. "Really? What should we draw?" "Anything," Lily said, handing her a pencil and a blank page. "The important thing is to just start." And so, as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Brenda and Lily sat side by side, their pencils scratching softly against the paper. Brenda drew a sprawling, fantastical city in the clouds, while Lily meticulously sketched a collection of curious, tiny mushrooms. The treehouse, once a symbol of exclusion and hurtful rumors, transformed. It became a sanctuary, a quiet space where apologies were accepted, forgiveness was freely given, and the gentle act of creation fostered a new, stronger bond. It was a place where kindness was not just a word, but a living, breathing presence, a place for everyone who sought understanding and peace.